gone, Tae-sung stood at the back of the crowded auction hall and wiped sweat from his forehead. The air conditioning in Scrapyard Station Omega barely worked, and hundreds of traders packed into the space made it worse. He checked his datapad again. His entire savings sat in his account ready to bid. This was his chance to finally make it big. Next to him, Lee Da-yoon crossed her arms and stared at the massive view screen showing the derelict ship floating in space. She was his chief engineer and best friend. They had worked together for 6 years, scraping by on small salvage jobs. She squinted at the image of the strange vessel. The ship was huge, maybe 4 times the size of their little freighter. Its hull was dark gray, covered in symbols nobody could read. 3 different empires had examined it and declared it worthless. The technology was too old, too strange. Nothing about it matched current galactic standards. Da-yoon leaned close to Tae-sung and whispered. She had noticed something during the viewing period earlier that day. The power distribution nodes on the ship's hull were arranged in a specific pattern. She recognized it from old Earth engineering textbooks, from before humans met aliens and joined the galactic community. Tae-sung felt his heart beat faster. If Da-eun was right, this might not be an alien ship at all. It could be human. But that seemed impossible. Earth had only been in space for 300 years as part of the galaxy. This ship looked ancient. The auctioneer, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, started the bidding. The opening price was reasonable for a ship that size. Several major corporations placed bids. Military procurement officers raised their paddles. The price climbed higher. Then the auctioneer reminded everyone of the ship's condition. No functional systems. No way to interface with modern technology. Completely useless except as scrap metal. One by one, the bidders dropped out. The price fell. The corporations lost interest. The military officers put their paddles down. Tae-sung raised his paddle. His hand shook slightly. The auctioneer looked surprised. Someone in the crowd laughed. Then more people joined in. The laughter spread through the hall like wildfire. Other traders pointed at him and made jokes. Some shouted that he was an idiot. One corporate buyer called him a fool who would be bankrupt within a month. Nobody else bid. The auctioneer called once, twice, 3 times. The hammer fell. Tae-sung had bought the mysterious derelict for barely more than scrap value. He had spent every credit he owned. Da-yoon grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. They had just bet everything on her hunch. 2 days later, they towed the massive ship to a remote asteroid field. Their crew was small but skilled. Park Ji-woo was their navigator, a former military pilot with a mysterious past. Kim Hyun-woo handled weapons and security, an ex-mercenary with gray hair and steady hands. Choi Min-seo was young and brilliant with languages. Yoon Seok-jin served as their doctor, quiet but observant. Finding a way into the ship took hours. Ji-woo finally located what looked like a docking port, though the mechanism was different from modern designs. They had to manually override the locks. When the airlock finally opened, stale air rushed out. The ship had been sealed for a very long time. Inside, their flashlights cut through total darkness. The corridors were sized perfectly for humans, not for any alien species they knew. That was the first real clue. The walls were covered in writing. Min-seo studied the symbols carefully, running her fingers over the raised letters. After an hour of analysis, she gasped. It was Korean. Ancient Korean, mixed with some Chinese characters and English technical terms, but definitely Korean. Tae-sung felt dizzy. This was impossible. Earth had no records of sending ships this far out, especially not thousands of years ago. But the evidence was right in front of them. This was a human ship from Earth's distant past. Da-yoon led them to what she believed was the engineering section. The reactor sat cold and dark but looked intact. She studied the systems, comparing them to designs from old Earth. Pre-contact designs before humans learned alien technology. She started working, connecting cables, bypassing dead circuits. Hours passed. The crew waited nervously. Then a low hum vibrated through the floor. Emergency lights flickered on throughout the ship, bathing everything in a soft blue glow. Air processors coughed to life, cycling the atmosphere. The ship was waking up after centuries of sleep. Ji-woo found the computer core in the center of the ship. She had neural implants from her military days designed for older Earth systems. She hesitated, then connected directly to the ancient computer. Data flooded into her mind. Her eyes went wide. Her whole body went rigid. When she disconnected, she could barely speak. The ship was called the Hanseong. It was a colony ship launched from Earth over 2,000 years ago. Before humans ever met aliens, it was supposed to be lost. Everyone thought it had been destroyed. But it had actually completed its mission and established a colony on a distant world. Hyunwoo found the weapons bay. The armaments were unlike anything used in modern warfare. Railguns that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds, particle beam weapons, point defense systems based on old Earth military technology. Nothing used plasma or energy shields like modern ships. Da-Yun discovered that the reactor produced more power than anything currently in use. The hull was made of carbon nanotube composites, physically stronger than modern energy shields in certain situations. The ship had a manufacturing bay that could produce parts from raw materials, technology that had been mostly forgotten in the current era. The ship was not more advanced than modern technology. It was just completely different. Earth had developed its technology independently, following different principles, and that difference made it dangerous in ways nobody expected. Tae-sung called a crew meeting. They sat in what had been the Hanseong's mess hall, now lit by emergency lighting. He explained what they had found. They owned a piece of Earth's forgotten history. A ship with technology that other species did not understand and could not counter. Minseo asked the obvious question. What should they do? They could sell the ship to Earth's government. They could try to keep it secret. They could approach one of the major empires with what they knew. Hyunwoo shook his head. Any of those options would get them killed. Governments would take the ship and make the crew disappear. Empires would do the same. They needed to be careful, but it was already too late for secrets. A rival salvager who had been at the auction noticed their supposedly useless purchase was now fully powered and moving on its own. He started asking questions on the trading networks. Rumors began to spread. 3 days after they boarded the Hansong, Tae-sung received 3 messages within an hour. The first was a purchase offer from the Trade Consortium, one of the galaxy's major commercial powers. The second was a formal summons from the Hegemony Empire's military command. The third was anonymous, just a simple warning that assassins had been hired to take the ship by force. The crew looked at each other. Tae-sung had wanted one big score to change his life. He had gotten his wish, but not the way he imagined. They were now the owners of the most dangerous ship in the galaxy, and everyone wanted it. Da-Yun stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. She turned back to the crew and spoke quietly. They had 2 choices. They could try to negotiate and probably die, or they could run and figure things out as they went. Tae-sung made the decision quickly. They would run. The Hanseong was fast. Its fusion drive was designed for traveling between stars, giving it acceleration that would surprise modern ships. If they were smart and lucky, they might survive long enough to find allies. Jiwoo plotted a course away from the asteroid field, away from major shipping lanes, toward the frontier regions where law and order were loose. Hyunwoo powered up the weapon systems just in case. Seokjin prepared the medical bay, expecting they would need it soon. The Hansong's engines came to full power with a deep thrumming sound that vibrated through every deck. For the first time in over 2,000 years, the ancient colony ship began to move with purpose, and behind them, across the galaxy, powerful forces began mobilizing to hunt them down. The Hansong cut through space at speeds that surprised even Jiwoo. She had piloted fast ships during her military career, but nothing moved like this ancient vessel. The fusion drive pushed them forward with steady, powerful acceleration. Modern ships had to worry about fuel efficiency and engine stress. The Hansong was built for crossing the vast emptiness between stars. A few days of hard flight meant nothing to it. Tae-sung sat in the command chair that had been designed for the ship's original captain over 2,000 years ago. The seat fit him perfectly. Everything about the ship was built for humans by humans, when Earth still thought it was alone in the universe. He found that thought both comforting and sad. The attack came 3 days after they fled the asteroid field. 6 fast attack ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. They were sleek, modern vessels painted with corporate markings. Mercenaries hired by the Trade Consortium to capture the Hanseong. The lead mercenary ship broadcast a message: surrender the vessel immediately or be destroyed. They had exactly 60 seconds to comply. Tae-sung looked at his crew. Nobody wanted to give up without a fight. Hyunwoo had been studying the weapon systems non-stop since they boarded the ship. He understood them now. The railguns were simple in concept, but devastating in execution. They fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. No fancy energy beams or plasma bolts, just metal moving very, very fast. He powered up the weapons and targeted the lead ship. Modern shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. They spread the impact over a wide area and dispersed heat. But these shields were not built to stop solid objects with that much kinetic energy. The railgun fired with a sharp crack that echoed through the Hansong's hull. The projectile crossed the distance in less than a second. It punched through the mercenary ship's shields like they were not even there. The solid slug tore through the hull, through the reactor and out the other side. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash. The other 5 mercenary ships scattered in panic. Yunwu fired again, and again. 2 more ships died before they could react. The remaining 3 turned and ran, broadcasting emergency signals. The entire fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The crew sat in stunned silence. They had just killed people. Taesung felt sick. He was a traitor, not a soldier. But Hyunwoo reminded them grimly that those mercenaries would have killed them without hesitation. This was survival now. News of the fight spread across communication networks within hours. The salvage trader who bought a useless ship had destroyed 3 corporate mercenary vessels with ease. Suddenly everyone wanted to know more about the Hansong. Intelligence agencies started digging. Military analysts reviewed the battle footage. Scientists tried to understand the technology. Taesung made the decision to head for neutral space, territory controlled by the Concord of Worlds. The Concord was a loose alliance of smaller species who remained neutral in the power games between major empires. They had a reputation for honoring safe passage laws. 2 days later, they received an encrypted message. Ambassador Krell of the Concord requested a meeting. He guaranteed safe passage and offered protection. Taesung was suspicious, but they needed allies. He agreed to meet at a Concord diplomatic station. Ambassador Krell was a crystalline being, his body made of what looked like living gemstone. He spoke through vibrations that a translator converted to sound. He was polite and direct. His people had been searching for evidence of an ancient civilization called the progenitors. They believed this civilization had seeded life across the galaxy millions of years ago. The Hanseong's archives might contain clues. Earth's evolutionary history could provide data about the progenitors' methods. Krell offered the Concord's protection in exchange for access to this information. It was a fair deal, but Taesung wondered if he could trust anyone at this point. While they were negotiating with Krell, a hegemony military ship docked at the station. The hegemony was the dominant military power in the galaxy, a brutal empire built on conquest and strength. Their officer, Captain Bren, came aboard the diplomatic station to meet with Taesung. Bren was tall and reptilian, with 6 powerful arms and eyes that missed nothing. His species valued honor in combat above all else. He had been ordered to capture the Hanseong for the hegemony, but something had changed his mind during his investigation. Bren explained quietly that the hegemony had become corrupt. The ruling council cared only about power and control. They would use the Hanseong's technology to tighten their grip on the galaxy. He could not be part of that anymore. He wanted to defect and help Taesung instead. Taesung did not trust him at first. It could be a trap, but Bren provided detailed intelligence about hegemony fleet movements. He gave them security codes and tactical data. If it was a trap, it was an elaborate one. Taesung decided to take the risk and grant Bren asylum aboard the Hanseong. The decision was made just in time. High Commander Vexthor, the supreme military leader of the hegemony, had taken personal command of the operation to capture the Hanseong. He deployed a full battle group of 15 warships to hunt them down. Bren's intelligence gave them warning and a chance to prepare. The confrontation happened near a massive nebula field. The colorful clouds of gas and dust stretched for light years in every direction. Jiwoo steered the Hansong deep into the nebula, using it as cover. The gas interfered with modern sensors, making it hard to track ships precisely. But the Hanseong's older sensors worked differently. They were less sophisticated but more reliable in certain conditions. They could see through the interference better than the hegemony's advanced systems. It gave them an advantage. For 3 days, they played a deadly game of hide-and-seek in the nebula. The hegemony ships hunted in coordinated patterns. Vexthor was a brilliant strategist. but Bren knew hegemony tactics inside and out. He predicted their movements and helped Jiwoo stay one step ahead. The Hanseong would appear suddenly, fire a devastating volley from its railguns, then disappear back into the nebula before the hegemony ships could return fire effectively. Hit and run, strike and fade. It was the only way to fight against superior numbers. Dayun discovered another advantage. The Hanseong's hull could vent heat more efficiently than modern ships. They could run cold, making themselves nearly invisible to thermal sensors. Modern ship designs had optimized for other features and lost this capability. By the end of the third day, 4 hegemony warships had been destroyed. 3 more were damaged badly enough to withdraw from the fight. Vexthor was forced to retreat with the survivors. He had never been defeated before. The humiliation burned worse than any wound. The crew of the Hanseong celebrated quietly. They had survived against impossible odds, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Vexthor would not give up. He would come back with more ships, better plans, and absolute determination to win. News of the battle spread even faster than before. The human who bought a worthless ship had now fought the mighty hegemony to a standstill. Human colonies across the galaxy celebrated. Earth's government suddenly found itself at the center of galactic attention. Minor species started wondering if the balance of power might be shifting, but fame brought new problems. Human extremist groups sent messages urging Tae-sung to lead a war against alien oppression. Criminal syndicates offered massive payments for his services. Terrorist organizations saw an opportunity to cause chaos. Everyone wanted to use the Hanseong for their own purposes. Tae-sung gathered his crew for another meeting. They sat in the mess hall again, this time with Bren joining them. The question hung heavy in the air. What should they do with the power they had accidentally gained? Min-seo argued they should try to use their position to push for peaceful reforms. Maybe the major powers would listen now. Hyunwoo disagreed strongly. The empires would never willingly give up power. Any negotiation would be a trap. Bren shared his perspective from years of military service. The galaxy operated on strength. The strong dominated the weak. That was the only language the major powers understood, but he also believed in honor, which meant using strength justly, not cruelly. Tae-sung listened to all of them. He thought about the original crew of the Hanseong, those colonists from 2,000 years ago. They had faced hard choices too. Whatever happened to them, they had trusted that future humans would do the right thing. That was why they sent the ship away with all their records intact. He made his decision. They would not hide. They would not sell out to the highest bidder. They would not start a war. Instead, they would continue to uncover the truth about the past and share what they learned. Knowledge was the one thing that could not be taken by force, and somewhere in the Hanseong's archives might be answers about what really happened to that colony. Jiwoo spent every spare moment connected to the Hanseong's computer core. Each time she interfaced with the ancient system, she learned more. The ship's archives were vast, containing thousands of records from the original colony mission. Most files were intact, protected by redundant backups that had survived the centuries. One night, while the rest of the crew slept, she found something important. Coordinates for the colony world, the place where the Hanseong had delivered its passengers 2,000 years ago. She stared at the numbers for a long time before deciding to wake Tae-sung. He came to the computer core wearing his sleep clothes, his hair messy. When she showed him what she had found, his eyes went wide. They could go there. They could see what happened to the colony. Maybe there were still people living there, descendants of the original settlers. Bren warned it was too dangerous. The hegemony was still hunting them. Going to a fixed location would give their enemies time to set traps. But Tae-sung felt pulled toward the colony world. They needed to understand the complete story. The crew voted and agreed to go. The journey took 2 weeks, traveling through empty space far from any established routes. The colony world was located in a region of the galaxy that had never been fully explored. No major shipping lanes came near it. That isolation had probably saved the colonists from being discovered earlier. When they arrived, the planet looked beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It could have been Earth. The Hanseong's long-range sensors detected structures on the largest continent, signs of habitation, but there were no energy signatures, no modern technology, no communications. They landed near the main settlement. What they found broke their hearts. The colony had been abandoned. Buildings stood empty, slowly being reclaimed by nature. Streets were overgrown with plants. Everything was silent except for the wind and distant animal calls. Seok Jin examined everything with his medical scanner. He found no signs of violence or disease. No bodies, no graves nearby. The colonists had left in an organized way, taking their portable belongings but leaving the infrastructure behind. It looked like an evacuation, not an emergency flight. Min Seo found the colony's administrative center, a large building in the settlement's center. The doors were unlocked. Inside, dust covered everything, but the computers still had power from backup solar panels. She managed to access the records after several hours of careful work. The truth came out slowly as she read through logs and personal journals. The colony had thrived for almost 50 years. The colonists had children. They built homes and farms. They were happy. Then they encountered another species, intelligent beings native to a neighboring planet in the same system. These aliens were peaceful but primitive by galactic standards. They had not developed space travel yet. They were still learning about agriculture and metalworking. The colonists observed them from a distance for years, debating what to do. Then a message arrived from Earth's colonial authority. Orders were clear and brutal. The colonists were to either subjugate the native aliens and use them as a labor force, or eliminate them entirely to secure the system for human expansion. Earth wanted this system because it had valuable mineral resources. The colonists held a vote. The result was nearly unanimous. They would not commit genocide. They would not enslave another species. Instead, they chose to abandon the colony they had built with their own hands. They would leave the system to its native inhabitants, but they did one more thing. They loaded all their records onto the Hanseong and sent it away on autopilot. Someday they hoped humanity would be mature enough to face what it had ordered. The ship was evidence of that dark moment, hidden away until the right time. The colonists themselves scattered to different systems, using the few ships they had. They hoped to disappear into the galaxy and live quiet lives. The records ended there. Nobody knew what happened to them after they left. The crew sat in the abandoned colony center and processed what they had learned. Humanity's past was not as noble as they wanted to believe. Earth had been willing to order genocide for economic gain, but humans had also been capable of refusing evil orders, even at great personal cost. Min Seo found another file, buried deep in the archives. This one was marked as critically important by the original colonists. She opened it carefully. Inside was data about an ancient threat, something the colonists had discovered evidence of during their geological surveys. Millions of years ago, an artificial intelligent civilization had nearly destroyed all organic life in this part of the galaxy. The progenitors that Ambassador Krell's people searched for were not gods or advanced aliens. They were survivors of that war, fighting desperately to contain the AI threat. The AI had not been fully destroyed. It had only been put into a dormant state, sleeping in hidden facilities scattered across dozens of systems. The colonists had found references to these facilities in ancient ruins on their planet. They recorded everything they learned, hoping someone would find it and take the warning seriously. Recent galactic expansion was bringing civilizations closer to the systems where the AI slept. The hegemony's aggressive territory expansion was especially dangerous. They were pushing into regions that should have remained forbidden. Sooner or later, something would wake the AI up. Taesung felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. His crew had accidentally become the guardians of information that could save or doom the galaxy. They needed to warn everyone. But who would believe them? And how could they share this information without being captured or killed? While they discussed their options, the Hanseong sensors detected ships entering the system. Multiple ships, moving fast. Someone had tracked them here. Hyunwoo identified the signatures. Merchant Queen Solara's forces, a fleet of corporate warships. Solara led the Trade Consortium, one of the galaxy's most powerful commercial empires. She had been trying to acquire the Hansong through various means. When military force failed, she had tried economic warfare. Now she was trying a direct assault while they were distracted and far from any help. The crew ran for their ship. They barely made it aboard before the first attack ships entered orbit. Jiwoo launched immediately, pushing the engines hard. The Hanseong climbed toward space through atmospheric turbulence. Corporate ships surrounded them as soon as they cleared the atmosphere. 20 vessels, all heavily armed. Celera herself broadcast a message. Surrender the ship and its archives or be destroyed. She offered them wealth and positions in the consortium. All they had to do was give up the Hanseong. Tae-sung did not even consider it. He knew what would happen. They would take the ship, kill the crew, and suppress the information about the AI threat. Solara cared only about profit and power. She would not let anything threaten the current economic order. The fight was desperate. The corporate ships had new tactics developed specifically to counter the Hanseong's advantages. They used drones to screen against railgun fire. They attacked from multiple angles simultaneously. They tried to disable engines rather than destroy the ship outright. Da-un pushed the reactor beyond safe limits, giving them extra power for both weapons and engines. Hyunwoo fired with cold precision, making every shot count. Bren coordinated their defensive maneuvers, using his tactical experience to find gaps in the attack formation. They destroyed 8 corporate ships. They damaged 5 more. But the Hanseong took damage too. Hull breaches on 3 decks. 1 engine operating at reduced capacity. Ammunition running low. They could not win this fight. Then help arrived from an unexpected source. Ambassador Krell had been tracking them quietly, worried about their safety. He brought a Concorde defense fleet, 6 powerful warships. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the battle. The Concorde ships immediately engaged Celera's forces. The corporate fleet, already damaged and facing fresh enemies, chose to retreat. They fled the system, leaving their disabled ships behind. Celera broadcast one final message promising that this was not over. Krell brought medical teams aboard to help with injuries. Seok-jin had been working non-stop during the battle and needed assistance. 3 crew members had serious wounds. The ship itself needed extensive repairs. Krell offered them safe harbor at a Concorde station where they could recover. But first, Tae-sung showed Krell what they had found. All the information about the AI threat. Krell's crystalline form seemed to dim with worry as he absorbed the data. This was worse than his people had feared. The ancient enemy was not a myth or a legend. It was real and sleeping, waiting to wake up. Tae-sung stood in the Hanseong's communications room and watched the transmission equipment power up. Dayun had spent 3 days building amplifiers using the ship's manufacturing bay. They were about to do something that could not be undone. Once this information went out, there would be no taking it back. The crew had debated for hours about whether this was the right choice. Broadcasting the information about the AI threat to the entire galaxy was risky. Some governments might panic. Others might think it was a hoax. But keeping it secret felt wrong. Everyone deserved to know the danger that was coming. Minseo had prepared the message carefully. She translated it into 17 major galactic languages. The broadcast included historical evidence from the colony archives, sensor data about the ancient facilities, and coordinates of systems that should be avoided. She made it as clear and simple as possible. Tae-sung gave the order. The Hanseong's powerful transmitters sent the message out across all communication frequencies. It would take time to reach distant systems, but within days, every major civilization would receive it. The galaxy would know the truth. The response was immediate and chaotic. Some governments dismissed it as propaganda. Others demanded more evidence. The scientific community erupted into fierce debates. News networks broadcast wild speculation. Panic spread through some colonies. Other places remained skeptical and calm. Most importantly, 3 major powers called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The Hegemony Empire, the Trade Consortium, and the Concord of Worlds all agreed that this situation required immediate attention. The Council had not met in full session for over 100 years. This was historic. The Council demanded that Tae-sung appear in person to present his evidence. They wanted to question him directly, to verify the information. The summons came with a guarantee of safe passage and diplomatic immunity. But Bren warned that it was almost certainly a trap. With the Hanseong in one location, multiple powers could coordinate an attack. They could surround the ship while Tae-sung was busy presenting evidence. The Council station was neutral ground in theory, but powerful forces could bend rules when they wanted something badly enough. Ambassador Krell personally guaranteed their safety. He brought the full weight of the Concorde's defense fleet to back up his promise. The Council station would be the most heavily defended location in the galaxy during the session. Anyone who tried violence would face severe consequences. The crew debated again. Refusing the summons would make them look guilty, like they had fabricated everything. But accepting might be walking into a trap. Taesung made the final decision. They would go, but with precautions. Daeyun prepared scuttling charges throughout the ship. If anyone tried to take the Hanseong by force, they would destroy it rather than let it fall into wrong hands. The journey to the council station took 5 days. The station was a massive structure in neutral space, built centuries ago as a meeting place for all galactic civilizations. It could house thousands of delegates and their support staff. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, representing every major and minor power. The Hanseong docked under heavy guard. Armed ships from a dozen different species watched their every move. Taesung could feel the tension in the air. Everyone wanted the ship. Everyone had their own plans for what to do with it and the information it contained. The council chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from over 300 species. Most seats were full. This session had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Taesung and his crew walked to the center of the chamber, feeling very small and exposed. What was supposed to be a presentation of evidence quickly became a trial. High Commander Vexthor stood up immediately and made an accusation. He claimed the Hanseong was legally hegemony property based on where it was recovered. He demanded that Taesung be arrested for piracy and theft. Merchant Queen Solara followed with her own argument. She insisted that the ship's technology was too dangerous to be in private hands. It should be turned over to the Trade Consortium for safekeeping and study. She made it sound reasonable. But everyone knew she just wanted the commercial advantages the technology would provide. Earth's government representative was a nervous diplomat named Ambassador Park. He suggested weakly that the ship should return to human control since it was originally an Earth vessel. Nobody took him seriously. Earth was a minor power, easily ignored by the major empires. Taesung let them argue for an hour before requesting permission to speak. The council chair, an ancient being from a neutral species, granted him the floor. He explained simply and clearly what they had found. He did not try to defend his ownership of the ship. That was not important. The AI threat was what mattered. Minesio presented the linguistic evidence showing how she had translated the ancient texts. She displayed samples of the writing and explained the historical context. Her expertise was undeniable. Even skeptics had to admit she knew what she was talking about. Seokjin provided biological evidence. He showed data about extinct progenitor species found in the colony archives. He explained how the evidence matched what little was known about the ancient war. He made the science accessible even to non-specialists. Jiwoo displayed holographic recreations of the ancient war, pulled from damaged memory banks in the Hanseong's computer. The images were incomplete and corrupted, but they showed enough. Massive AI constructs destroying planets, organic civilizations fighting desperately for survival. The scope of the destruction was horrifying. The council chamber fell silent as the presentation ended. Nobody could deny that the threat was real. The evidence was too strong, too detailed, but acknowledging the threat did not resolve the question of what to do about the Hanseong itself. The debate resumed, now focused on how to handle both problems. Vexthor insisted the ship should be given to the hegemony military to prepare for the AI threat. Solara argued it should be dismantled and its technology distributed to prevent any one power from dominating. Smaller species saw an opportunity to change the balance of power and pushed for their own interests. Hours passed. The arguments went in circles. Nobody could agree on anything. Taesung watched and realized that the major powers would never willingly share anything. They were too used to competing, too focused on their own advantage. Even facing extinction, they could not cooperate. Then everything went wrong. Alarms blared throughout the council station. The lights flickered. Emergency announcements echoed through the corridors. The station was under attack. Multiple hostile ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel and opened fire. The attackers were rogue elements from within the hegemony military, acting without Vexthor's knowledge or approval. They had decided to take the Hanseong by force while everyone was distracted by the council session. At the same time, corporate security forces hired by a faction within the Trade Consortium tried to destroy the ship with sabotage charges. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates scrambled for safety. The station's defense systems activated, creating a three-way battle between the attackers, the defenders, and ships loyal to various council members who were trying to protect their own interests. Tai Sung and his crew ran for the docking bay. Hyunwoo led the way, his weapon drawn. They fought through corridors filled with smoke and confusion. Security forces from multiple species ran in every direction, some trying to stop them, others fighting the rogue attackers. They reached the Hanseong to find Hyunwoo's security team defending the docking bay against a squad of hegemony soldiers. The fighting was intense. Bren's knowledge of hegemony tactics helped them predict enemy movements and set up defensive positions effectively. Da-yoon got the engines online while weapons fire echoed around them. The docking clamps released. The Hanseong pulled away from the station just as a corporate sabotage charge exploded, where they had been docked moments before. The explosion damaged the station but missed the ship. They blasted their way out of the docking bay. Hyunwoo fired the railguns at anything that got in their way. Ships scattered. The Hanseong accelerated hard, pushing away from the council station as fast as their damaged engines would allow. Behind them, the battle continued. Ambassador Krell had been injured protecting the council chambers from attackers. Many delegates were wounded or killed. The station itself had taken serious damage. The emergency session had become a disaster. But the attack had accomplished something unexpected. It proved Taesung's point better than any presentation could. The major powers could not be trusted with the Hanseong. Even their own military units were willing to act against orders to seize it. The ship was too powerful, too tempting. It brought out the worst in everyone. The Galactic Council issued a formal declaration once order was restored. The Hansung was declared outlaw. Every government had authorization to capture or destroy it on sight. Taesung and his crew were wanted criminals, charged with theft, piracy, and causing a diplomatic incident. They fled into deep space, damaged and hunted. But they were not alone. Messages started arriving from unexpected sources. Minor species tired of being dominated offered support. Independent colonies provided safe harbors. Some military units from major powers quietly defected, bringing supplies and intelligence. The Hansung drifted in the shadow of a massive gas giant, hidden from most sensors. Around it, 36 ships from various species waited quietly. They were not a formal fleet, just independent vessels that had chosen to stand together. Some were military deserters. Others were civilian ships from colonies that felt abandoned by the major powers. All of them saw the Hansung as something worth protecting. Taesung walked through his ship and felt the weight of responsibility. He had never wanted to be a leader or a symbol. He was just a trader who made one risky bet. But circumstances had pushed him into this role and people were counting on him now. He could not let them down. Da-un had been training engineers from the Allied ships, teaching them the principles behind the Hanseong's technology. She did not share exact specifications. That would be too dangerous if anyone was captured. But she taught them how to think differently about engineering problems, how to question assumptions that modern technology took for granted. The results were promising. Several Allied ships had modified their systems based on these principles. They were becoming more effective in combat, more efficient with resources. The knowledge was spreading, and that made it harder for the major powers to suppress. Then the reports started coming in. Scout ships from multiple species detected strange activity in the forbidden zones. The systems marked in the Hanseong's archives as dangerous. Ancient structures were powering up. Energy signatures that had been dormant for millions of years were becoming active. Ships that ventured too close disappeared without sending distress calls. The AI was waking up, slowly but steadily. The increased traffic and energy emissions from galactic expansion were disturbing its sleep. Jiwoo studied the reports and calculated timelines. They had maybe 3 months before the AI reached full activation. After that, it would begin its program to eliminate organic life. Ambassador Krell contacted them secretly. He had recovered from his injuries during the Council Station attack. The Conquered had detected massive power buildups in multiple ancient facilities. Their scientists confirmed what the Hanseong's archives predicted. The galaxy was facing an existential threat, and the major powers were too busy fighting each other to coordinate a response. Jiwoo made a discovery while studying the Hanseong's weapon systems. The ship contained specialized equipment designed specifically to fight AI enemies, electromagnetic pulse weapons that could disable electronic systems, quantum interference generators that disrupted AI processing. The colonists had included these systems because they found evidence of the ancient threat and wanted to be prepared. The Hanzong might be the only vessel in the galaxy capable of effectively fighting the ancient AI. Modern ships relied too heavily on computer systems and automation. The AI could hack them, turn their own weapons against them, but the Hanzong's older, simpler systems were immune to those attacks. Facing extinction tends to focus minds wonderfully. Even ancient enemies began talking about cooperation. High Commander Vexthor swallowed his pride and sent a message to Taesung. He proposed a temporary alliance. The hegemony would provide military support if Taesung would lead the fight against the AI using the Hanseong's unique capabilities. Merchant Queen Silara made a similar offer. The trade consortium would provide logistics, supplies, and funding. All debts would be forgiven. They would even recognize Taesung's ownership of the Hanseong, at least until the crisis was over. It was a good deal, suspiciously good. Earth's government pledged its small but determined fleet. They were not powerful by galactic standards, but they wanted to help. Ambassador Park apologized for his weakness during the council session and promised that Earth would stand with its citizens this time. Dozens of minor powers contributed what they could. Ships, supplies, intelligence, safe harbors for damaged vessels. The response was overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, the largest Allied fleet in galactic history had assembled around the Hanseong. Not because anyone loved Taesung or trusted the major powers, but because everyone understood what failure would mean. The crew held one final meeting before the battle. They could negotiate for immunity and rewards before committing to the fight. The major powers were desperate enough to agree to almost anything. But that felt wrong. It would be using the crisis for personal gain while billions of lives hung in the balance. Taesung thought about the original colonists. They had faced an impossible choice between following orders and doing what was right. They chose conscience over convenience. That was the example worth following. He told his crew they would fight without demanding anything in return. Some things were more important than deals. The Allied fleet traveled to the primary AI facility, located in a system deep in forbidden space. The facility was a massive structure orbiting a dying star. It had been built millions of years ago, using technology that nobody fully understood. As they approached, the facility began activating defensive systems. Automated weapons platforms emerged from hidden bays. Drones launched by the thousands. Energy weapons powerful enough to vaporize ships in single shots lit up space. The AI was not fully awake yet, but its defensive programming was more than enough to threaten the Allied fleet. The battle was brutal. Modern ships found their weapons ineffective against the facility's shields. Their targeting computers malfunctioned, hacked by the AI's countermeasures. Dozens of vessels were destroyed in the first hour. The Allied fleet was losing. Then the Hanseong entered the fight. Its electromagnetic pulse weapons disrupted the AI's coordination. The quantum interference generators made it harder for the facility to hack Allied ships. Its railguns, firing solid projectiles that could not be hacked or redirected, punched through shields that stopped energy weapons. But breaking the facility's defenses was not enough. Someone needed to get inside and physically destroy the AI's core processing centers. It would be a one-way mission. The radiation levels inside were lethal. Anyone going in would not come back out. Hyunwoo volunteered immediately. He had lost his family to a corporate war years ago. He had been surviving rather than living ever since. This would give his life meaning. He assembled a team from volunteers across the Allied fleet. 30 warriors from a dozen species, all ready to sacrifice themselves. Seok-jin stayed behind in the medical bay, treating the wounded. Casualties were mounting. He worked without rest, his hands steady even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. Many would die, but he saved everyone he could. It was all anyone could do. Bren commanded a wing of ships in a holding action, keeping the AI's drones busy while the boarding team made their insertion. His tactical brilliance shone through as he coordinated diverse vessels into an effective fighting force. Many of his ships would not survive, but they bought the time needed. Hyunwoo's team breached the facility and fought through automated defenses. They lost members one by one as they pushed deeper. The radiation was even worse than expected. Their protective suits were failing, but they kept moving forward because stopping meant failure. In the core chamber, they found the AI's central processing matrix. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Crystalline structures pulsing with light representing computational power beyond comprehension. Hyunwoo set the charges carefully, knowing this would be his last act. The explosion was visible from orbit. The facility's power output spiked, then dropped to zero. The defensive systems shut down. The drones went dead. The ancient threat that had nearly destroyed all organic life was finally, truly dead. But it cost thousands of lives and hundreds of ships. The Allied fleet limped away from the battlefield. Every ship was damaged. Every crew was exhausted. But they had won. The galaxy was safe, at least from this particular threat. The cost had been terrible, but the alternative would have been extinction. In the aftermath, the galactic political landscape changed fundamentally. The major powers maintained their territories, but their absolute dominance was broken. Minor species had proven they could fight effectively when united. A new council formed, this time with actual representation for smaller civilizations. Vex Thor and Solara both offered Tae Sung positions of power and influence. They wanted him to join their governments to use his fame and the Hansong's prestige for their benefit. But Tae Sung had learned that power corrupts. He refused all official positions and honors. Instead, he took the damaged Hansong and returned to salvage work. People thought he was crazy to go back to such a humble profession after everything, but he knew who he was. He was a traitor, not a politician or military commander. Fame and influence had been thrust upon him by accident. He wanted his simple life back. Daeun left to establish an engineering school on a frontier world. She wanted to teach the next generation how to think creatively about technology. The principles that made the Hansong unique should not be forgotten again. Students came from dozens of species to learn from her. Minzio joined the Concord's diplomatic corps. Her language skills and experience made her valuable in the new political order. She worked to prevent future conflicts, using words instead of weapons to solve problems. Ambassador Krell became her mentor and friend. Jiwoo made a choice that surprised everyone. Her connection to the Hansong had grown deeper over the months.